All right,
Okay.
so we're now recording.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, good evening, wherever you are listening to this. The latest in our coach development webinar series. My name is Matt Derber. I work in the performance team with England Handball. I'm joined today by my colleague, John Pierce, and we're fortunate also to have with us Pontus Axell, who's the physical preparation coach from Alingsås Handball Club. Hopefully I pronounced that well enough. This is a second take, our latest webinar, which is the return to sport after COVID-19 and general principles of physical preparation. This is a bit different to some of the others we've done. This isn't a live recording. We're pre-recording this, so there won't be any questions, but hopefully Pontus is happy for people to get in touch with some questions afterwards. I know you've got your contact details at the end, so we can start some discussions on social media if anyone has any questions. I'll let Pontus introduce himself properly, and then with no further ado, we can crack on with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak about return to sport after COVID-19 and general principles of physical preparations. My name is Pontus Axell, and I'm a physical preparation coach for Alingsås in Handbollsligan. We are playing in the first division, and on the high school here in Gothenburg, who is the owner of Swedish Handball Federation. So we're recruiting the best players from 16 years old, and then they went through 3 years of school and handball training here in Gothenburg. So I'm the physical preparation coach for the players here who is playing here in Gothenburg. So who am I? I'm a handball player, as much of the other coaches in handball. I had unfortunately 3 surgery for my left knee when I was 21, so I had to quit a little bit earlier. And somewhere there I started to question how I got injured, and I think it was somewhere I started to get interesting in sports science and how to learn others to not get injured. So I started as a PT in 2012 and have worked with several teams like guys you see from 2016 here, that was in football, and I work with a women's team, GTX Mölndal, who is the first division in Swedish football, and as I said, I have work here in the high school in Gothenburg since 2013. And the last five years, I work with RIK, Rebergslid Handball in the Swedish Handball League. But since June, I've moved to Alingsås. I also been a handball referee, as you can see down here. So I will call me nerdy in handball, or a nerd. So I like it, and that's why I'm try to work here as much as possible. And in addition to that, I also got a bachelor in sports science from Gothenburg University. But before we start here, I always start the presentations I have with this picture. Obviously, is like you see, it's in Swedish, but I made a translation here. So it's science. It's order to make this equal and fair. Everyone should pass the same test. You can start by climbing up in this tree. So we see the teacher here who is saying this is a task for everyone, but as you can see, the elephant will not have the same opportunities to climb up in this tree like the monkey had. And I think that is a picture of everyone in the teams that we are working with, the athletes. Everyone has different abilities, and our job is to monitor them and get the right dose in the right amount of time to avoid injuries and stuff like that. So that's my explanation of this.
I think that's a philosophy that I think should hopefully run through with a lot of coaches. And for me, with I said, a bit of a background in the industry, and one thing I've kind of learned over the years is kind of sports-specific training is kind of becoming less important and more individual. That it's got to be a focus on the individual athlete. So there's not kind of a handball conditioning program. It should be tailored kind of towards the individual.
Mm. Yeah, I totally, I would say, agree with you. I think somewhere people trying to get away from the basics, they forgot them and try to be too much specialization also. But I think here that you have to be, we have to highlight the individual differences. So we can't start training as we train grown people with the young and stuff like that. So okay, and the contents here today, we're gonna speak about return to team handball after COVID-19. What's important to consider it? What is load in team handball? I'm going to speak some practical examples from my perspective, and a little bit of from then until now, what have I learned during my 8 years in this industry. But first of all, what's our missions? I think the first mission from us is to keep the players healthy and on the pitch. If we can do that, we're gonna have more opportunities to win the games. And for example, you can see here in the table to the right, you can see the injury league from the Premier League 2015 to 2016, and you see that Leicester won the whole Premier League, and they also got in the second place on the total amount of injuries. Which injuries also had a high cost for them, who like Newcastle and Everton and Liverpool. So I think it's the first mission is to keep them players healthy, and the second is maximize their physical performance, like jump height and sprint and endurance. Okay. So, and in addition to that, there is 4 important factors to keep the players on the pitch, and it's from Ekstrand et al., who is a member of the FIFA board, the medical team, and the 4 important factors is players' individual load, external and internal. External could be the distance or the high speed, the number of high sprint, and it could also be sprints, etc. And it's about well-being, which affect their family lives or their social lives. We have to keep the players that they feel well. And the third is leadership style. From 2 examples here from Ekstrand is the transactional style, which is called the carrot and stick method, and it's also about giving players rewards and more like an we can say Hitler style. And the other side is transformational leadership, which is more genuine care for the people and putting up some positive goals and including them in the whole process, so they feel that their opinions is important. And also the fourth one is the internal communication between staff and head coach. So the cooperation between the members of the staff is also important.
When you're talking about staff there, would that be the kind of the medical team and?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Head coach to assistant coach to a medical team to the sport director. Everyone should be at the same page and be, I would say, included in the whole process.
So where you work in a kind of a club environment, would you be kind of encouraged to go to the kind of the head coach with your thoughts on the kind of the level of preparedness for a certain player if you think they're not ready to play, or would it be the coach would come to you to ask questions? How would that work in your setting?
I believe the most important part here is that the coach see the importance of a physical coach and a physio and a doctor. I believe that he has to include them, and he cannot do his own style. If you get what I mean. Everyone should see that their role is important, and he emphasizes an discussion about the players all the time. You get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And also these factors is another study earlier on from Ekstrand et al., the member of the FIFA medical team. He believed that there are three important factors, also who is controlling them to not get injured. It's the first one is player factors, which is the doctors and the physio, who is the owner, and also the S&C coach or the physical preparation coach. And that could be the controlling their second here, the well-being, and also the leadership style. So we can highlight and we can emphasize the importance that the players feel that it's totally okay to tell how you feel and how you feel about the training. And the second is the load, the coaching team, and then we're gonna discuss a little bit more on. But it's about the training load and avoid spikes in it. So we're gonna discuss it a little bit earlier on. And the club factors, you know, the board and the sport director has the player the right facilities, the right economy to go all on the training, or does he have to do something else around the whole training? So 4 core elements of a safe return to sport. This is our core from Alingsås Handball that we have discussed and that we try to work on. We believe that first of all, you have to have a plan. You have to plan your sessions, and you have to plan when you're gonna train hard and when you're gonna train low, and when you have to have time to recover mentally and physically. We also call it periodization in the S&C community. And then it's prepared for training. We have to train as we play, and we have to do it in a controlled volume. We cannot do all at one time. We have to do it parallelly. That's why we have a periodization. And we have to be be aware of the respond to that load. So that's why we include session RPE. We're gonna speak about it a little bit later on. And the recovery part, as we also try to monitor with readiness. And we're also gonna speak about it later on. So before we start to this 4 explanation, we're gonna explain what is load. If we look at Bompa and Brucelli, a book from, I think the 2nd edition is out now. It's called Periodization. Everyone has been studying SNC, eller sports science. I think everybody has read it. It explains that there are 3 important parts to consider it. It's the volume, it's the frequency, and its intensity. And it explains how much volume. It could be the amount of kilo in 1 session, or reps or a set in 1 session. Or it could be the frequency, how often do we practice, or the intensity. We can be heart rate, it can be session RPE, it could be % of 1 repetition max, etc. So if you know this 3, it's going to be easier to control the load. So that's lead us to what is load in team handball. We're going to speak about 4 different parts here. And the first of all, and the most important part, I think, is to be aware of the total numbers and suddenly increases in the total amount of throws. And how much is enough to increase the load, especially when you start up after a break like this, after COVID. You didn't have a throw anything, I think. At least here in Sweden, we don't have the access to the handball halls, so or the arenas. So we have to throw outside, and it's not so easy to do that. And I think it's hard to motivate a player to do it when they are on a holiday. So I always try to find this study important and try to emphasize it when I'm working. So it's a 30-week study of elite youth handball players. And they study how much can you increase the load before they get injured or they feel pain in their shoulder. So they conclude that if you increase the load more than 20% from week 1 to week 2, that will increase the risk of shoulder injury. And the players with reduced external strength or mobility, they have an even more injury rate when they were exposed to increasing in handball load.
So in terms of kind of monitoring the load with players, would you, in your sessions, would you kind of plan for, like, it's hard to measure a set number of throws, but would you kind of have a rough idea, or would you kind of measure it by time? So how long do they spend throwing? How would you go about measuring?
Yeah, I'll always start with time first, and then I start to work with the coaches about the drills. I always try to find insights how or which drill they are using. For example, we can't do finishing for 1 hour. There will be many throws. So we're doing more like the tactical part or a movement instead of instead of too much finishing. But I always try to start with maximum 3 sessions the first week, and they not always more than 60 minutes. And we try to do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so they have 1 day rest between. And then we prioritize more like testing or physical training instead.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that's why I was and then the next week we increase with 1 session, and the next week we increase 1 more.
Yeah. Okay.
So and then we try to use the session RP also to evaluate how they respond to the session.
So how hard we're working within that session.
Yeah, and if they feel any pain. And I think the important factor here is also to consider the position that they are playing. Let's say a back player, they are gonna have more throws than a pivot, for example. And the last part here is we need to consider what type of load the specific handball drills induce on the players. As I said here, we have to design drills that is not so how we say give tiredness on the shoulder. So I think it's our mission here also. So, and we also try to prevent this by using a lot of drills in our warm-up sessions. If someone wants to have some examples more, you can use the great link here, skadefri.no. It's from the top university in Oslo, who has a lot of great drills there, if you want to have some examples.
But, is that free to access for people?
Excuse me?
Is that free to access for people?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
They have on handball and football and a lot of sports also, but this is only for handball, and they have a lot of research around it too. So here you have a lot of examples like mobility, for the thoracal mobility, and also for glenohumeral function and strength. And here's three drills that I'm using by myself as a warm-up. Obviously that's not working with the video, but you can see the how I thinking. Let's work on. So what is load in team handball? We move on with this, but number 2, I think it's to be aware of the total number of jumps, change of directions, and body contacts. And this is very, very hard because there are not so many research about it. I couldn't find it when I was working with this 2 years ago, and I did a search here for a couple of weeks ago, but I couldn't find so much on this. I think it's hard because you don't have these tools like LPS, local positioning system, or the accelerometers who can measure this, like we can do in football, for example. But I think it's important for us as coaches. So if we want to control this load, we have to be aware of this important factors, and especially, as I said before, practicing on finishing in their specific player positions. I can take an example there from the wings, when the backs and the pivots place on the other side. Mostly of that time here in Sweden, the wings will go on the counterpart of the side, and they are shooting in this position for, let's say, 20-25 minutes, and in 25 minutes you have a lot of finishing. And if we can compare it, if there are maximum intention every time, and we compare it with the track and field, I don't believe there are doing so many jumps, maximum jumps in one session. So I think there is a huge load here on the patella and for the ankles, and it's an important part to consider it.
Do you use information from other sports like that? So would you, like you said there, so like a long jump session, would you kind of look at that and think, right, that's a good number of jumps to have in a session?
I don't have any science behind it, but I think it's, if you want to start up with, let's say, accelerations, you're doing 20 meters maximum intent.
Yeah.
I don't think you should do more than 6 jumps, 6 sprints, with at least 10 times a work rest. And it's the same here. If you finish maximum 1 time, what should you do the other 3-4 minutes? Okay, we can do some more instead. So I think there's a problem here, but my recommendation is to be aware of it, because some players can handle it and some cannot. And I think there's more to do instead of just practicing on finishing. You can do this, you can work on the technique more instead of just jump.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say a specific number.
Yeah. I just wondered if you kind of used any kind of examples from other sports, any training sessions. And
no, I'm just trying to be aware of it.
Yeah.
I had a coach when I was working with for a couple of years ago. He was very technical driven, and the wings were working in this in 40-50 minutes, and we have 3 to 4 patella inflammations, and then we could recognize that, okay, it's not the physical training, it has to be this one. And then we try to take it down to 10 to 15 minutes, and after that we didn't have any problem with it. So it just, I want to highlight that you can recognize that what could be the problem. But we move on. So as I said, we have expensive tools like this, but unfortunately in handball we don't have so many money. So I think we cannot see that we are going to use this in the sessions a couple of years ahead. But you see, in, let's say, the European handball in Sweden, the company Kinexon had it. Did you notice it? The data. So they had the data how high they are jumping and how fast they are shooting, and the distance they were running. I think is a big step forward to quantify this.
Yeah.
So I think they had to plan to use it in the Olympics too.
Okay. And that, I guess, then can be kind of used as a benchmark.
Yeah, I hope so. So we can see that there are some standards on how they are moving.
Yeah.
Okay, move on. The third one is heart rate or frequency of the heart, but we should be aware of the intermittent character of the game doesn't always mirror the real effort. That's why we have this anaerobic character in the game. As you can see, we have this more like the muscular driven, and the heart rate doesn't reflect all of the game that we are playing. But it gives us another indicator how it could look like. And the most important part, I've been using Polar from my team, and I think it's more important to see the individual response to the same drill with respect to player position. And we have also used it to evaluate how the players handle the drills when we are using a ball, because that is what we aim to do every time. So this is a session. You see we're playing the classical one, 4 versus 4. We play 4 minutes. And you see that we have only 2 players who is in the red zone, and the other ones is in yellow. This is a percent of the maximum heart rate. And we have some green, and we have a lazy person too here. So it's hard to me. I want to explain and highlight that we have to induce drills that give the same stimulus to everyone. We cannot say that just play 4 versus 4, give an optimum stimulus. We have to be more creative as a coach to find to hit every player's physical top. And here's another example. It's the same drill, but 2 individual responses. So we have done 3 drills in this session in 1 hour and 22 minutes, and it's the same drill for same person, but totally different answers. And that's why we want to use heart rate as an evaluation of the session also.
So would you monitor this throughout the session and then you can kind of adapt, or is it just something you look at afterwards and then that will kind of help?
Both really. So I give the feedback to the coaches, and they try to hunt the lazy players, if you can see. And also we have the same, but we want to take some players down in the heart rate and in the intensity. So my job here is to give feedback to the coaches and to the players, so we see that the drill hit what we aim to in the physical one. And you should, as I said, be aware that the character of the game handball is more anaerobic, and that's why the heart rate is not so. It's not the best solution, if we can say, but it gives us an extra indicator.
Yeah.
So that's why we measure it also with the session RPE. The classical one is cost efficient and easy. The problem here is to get the players to fill it in. I think I'm playing most 15 to 20 minutes per day to get every players to fill in the formula. As you can see here, we have the old scale, Bori, and then we have the modified. So when we're doing this, we are trying to plan our sessions after this also. So let's say if we have a game like we have today with Alingsås, we want to play a red handball game-based hit in Monday and compare it with the hit session. We aim to hit around 8, and our job is to hit as many 8s as possible for every players. So if we have a game and most of the players tell us 1-8, but some of them give us a 2 or a 3, we have to evaluate and reform it how we plan the session.
And just so for people out there, if they've not kind of come across this scale before, the players just select, I guess, on the modified ball scale on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard they think they're working.
Yeah, of course. I should say that it's a subjective scale of how hard you think the session was, and it's coming out to the other players via the XPS network. It's a computer program who's sending out to an app, and the players have it in their cell phone 20 minutes after the completed session. And it takes almost 1 minute for them to just fill it in, which number they think, how hard the session was. Okay, so here's an example of how it could look like over a period. We have this May, from May and June. So we see that we have spikes and we have lower. If we explain it more, you have the start here in the preseason. We start low and we try to give the shoulders a little bit. We try to start up like with an anatomic adaptation training, even called circuits, easy circuits. And then we increase the load and we go down and we increase. So it's sessions by sessions. What we know from the science is we cannot train like this every time. We have to train hard, low to get the stimulus and then how to say adaptation. And it's similar like I think that we should do. So this is general for all the team. But if we take this one, we compare it with one player. So we see that this one is for all training, and the other ones is for the individual player. So the round ones is for the team, and this one is for the player. We see a totally different answers in the first part. So here we have to think about what happened. How many sessions have we had before, and do we have to reform our starting of this session? So it's following curves like the other ones, but we have too low or too high response. So it's something like this we have to handle and try to calculate. Do you understand my point, or should I?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, just out of interest, the training load. So is that calculated based on, have you kind of grouped together different kind of information, like the shoulder throws, the change of direction? How is
it's the sum of all things, but I can, if I want to, as you see here, this is in Swedish, sorry, but you have handball session here, and you have physical training here, and you have games here, so I can see more specific if I want to see the more handball session, or is the physical training who is spiking the load. Okay,
so you can kind of pinpoint which area they are.
Yeah, and if I see a spike like this on one player, I always try to talk to him and understand what induced these spikes.
Yeah.
And most of all time when this in the start is always the throws. If we look at the expect for the goalkeeper. Then.
Yeah.
Okay. And to addition to that, if we look at the training like this, training load, it's the number when they are subjective fill-in, and it's the time. So it's number times time, which gives a number or a score. But if we look at another ratio, it's acute chronic ratio. which is from Team Gabbett, who is the creator of it. We can see that we want to avoid spikes like this. So it's a measurement of training load over time. So if you have too much training and too high scores, it will increase the ratio like this. So, and it's based off, you should be around 0.8 to 1.5 to not increase the risk of getting injured. And this is our computer from XPS who is collecting this data, and we can see that one player had a high spikes in the end. So they are filling the 3 weeks before our start of the preseason. And if we compare it with this one, you can see that this training where he can do in this period, not matching the session we are starting up with in the team. So that's why the acute chronic ratio raises up like this. And this is a high risk of getting injury, or a potential risk factor of getting injury by too much too soon.
Is there a certain amount of time you could kind of sustain that for? Like, if a week or so, would that be manageable, or do you not want them to go above that level at all?
I think that where Gabbett writes, he's the researchers of it and the creator. He said that this is a time where it's so individual how long you can handle this. But he also said that sometimes you have to go over this overtraining line, because otherwise you will not get adapted. Yeah. But sometimes you have to be around this line too to get fully recovered, and that's why I have another example of this player who is looking much better. And then we know that before we starting up on the 7th of May, he had done a lot of better preparation. And he has done his homework, in another word. And you can see that he had high spikes, but also recovery between them. Yeah. So we have too much spikes, but it's going lower afterwards. So it's a smaller curve if we compare them, as you see. This is quite nerdy, but I think it's an alternative tool to handle training load. Do you have any questions?
No, I think it's a good.
Have you heard it before?
I've not seen this no before, but it's a good way to highlight the high spikes followed by the low training to help that recovery. I think that's a good graphic to show that.
It's a good researcher. It's Team Gabbett. He's the creator of it. I think he's working on the Australian Sports Institute, I think. Okay. Yep. Do we move on? So what challenges do exist after this? Players who get back from injuries, which means too much too soon, as we seen in the picture beforehand, where the players have not done his homework during his holiday, and he gets too higher spikes, and it's the same for those who get injury. And obviously players who spikes in their load, and we have a problem there with, as I as I'm working with the players who is moving to the high school in Gothenburg. As I said before, the owner of this is the Swedish Handball Federation, and they are picking the best players from 16 years old to this how can I say academy, and they're coming from a smaller club where they maybe have trained 3 times a week, and now they should have 3 times a week session in here in the school, and also 4 to 5 sessions with the club. So it's a hard thing to try to communicate with the clubs and try to moving in them gently in the new environment.
Yeah.
And I feel last year we have 9 clubs on the boys side to manage to get together, and in the women's side or the girls side we have 12 clubs this year. So it's hard to get them on the same page, as you can see what I mean.
Yeah.
So this is an important part, as we said, with the shoulder injuries. And another challenge is that player and coaches do not understand the importance of sessions RPE and readiness. The coaches have to see the winning of it, and I think it's our job as physical preparation coaches to give them the answers, because I can't understand why they don't want to see a lot of numbers and stuff like that. They want to have answers, so it's our job to motivate them. And of course, there are also with subjective scales, athlete mindset, and no pain, no gain mentality. I believe that some people are a little bit afraid, and they think that the hard session was very, very hard, and some players think that the hard sessions is not so hard, as you can see, if you understand what I mean. That there are differences in how we think that hard session is. And too much focus on specialization and forget about the basics, which I mean that if we look at the younger players, I think it's important to learn the basic skills in physical preparations. If we can take a barbell, we can say a barbell squat or something like that, and try not to do too much specialization. Give time to the physical preparations also.
Yeah, this is a big one for us at the moment. We've tried to have a bit of a focus with our kind of performance athletes and providing them with some resources to, well, the term we use over here is building the foundation. So building their kind of control, posture, stability, mobility. So they've got these foundational movement skills they can then build on. So that's something we've been working on as an organisation with our young players. How many of them take it on board, I don't know, but something we're trying to push, and we think it's quite important.
Yeah, we have a problem here as we do in Sweden, that we get too much specialized very soon. That players who was maybe 16, 17 years old competing on a grown-up level, and they are not giving time to. Sorry, I'm hearing myself right now.
No. Okay, we can hear you fine.
Mute your phone, I think. So
is that better?
I think you have to mute your phone, I think. So that's better. Where am you? So I think that especially during these years 16 to 20, we have to give them time to develop a physical, and even earlier, from, let's say, from 12, 13 years, and do not let them play so much games. Otherwise their bodies will not hold for the whole career. So a practical example from my periodization theory is this is called the step loading, which I was explained earlier on. We start up quite early with the circuits and anatomic adaptations, AA sign here, and we increase the load and increase a little bit more, and we try to manipulate those three variables: intensity, frequency, and volume. And then we take down the volume or reduce it, and then we go increase again. So this is a practical example for our pre-season, and it's from the famous book Periodization from Bompa and Bocelli. And this is a pre-season part 3 example, as we're doing again. Start up a little bit early, easy, and then we have 2 sessions of red. We increase the load, and we go down and try to give them a more speed emphasis before the start of the Handbollsliga, HBL here. Do you have any questions to it? No? Okay.
No, not on that one. No.
Nope. And a practical example from week to week, where it's more like I like the word of agile periodizations approach from Mladen Jovanovic. He's the author of this great book. You have to be more like a sniper to handle this type of situation. So if you have a game, let's say Monday and Wednesday here, we only do pop-ups for the physical part, and this pop-ups, it's short intervals of training for those who hadn't played, and it's no it's no lactic acid, it's just activation. And you can see if we have games, and 2 days beforehand we have a power session strength for those who hadn't played, and we have a pre-ep session for those who had played, and combine it with handball. And it's moving on like this. Do you have any questions to it?
Yeah. So with this agile periodization, obviously, would you have this once you've got your kind of fixture list? Would this plan be in place quite early, or is it agile even in itself? So once you've played a game, can you, if the players are feeling more tired, can you adjust it even?
Yeah. That is the explanation of how I think like this is agile periodization approaches. You have to be a sniper and try to adapt to the situation. Sometimes you can follow this schedule as it seems here, but sometimes you have to do something completely else with the players. I have players who feel here who had played 45 minutes and they think they are fresh. Okay, we can do a strength session then with power, and that's why I try to include session RP and readiness as an important factor of how we can prescribe training for the players after the games. We move on. So, and this is a model that I've done. I'm sorry for the Swedish, but I can explain it fast. So the first question I'm asking myself is, did I play this last game? and if they have session RP that is low, below 5, and they have green readiness, I have to ask myself, when is the next game? Is it 2 days ahead or less? Or is it 3 days, 3 days or more? And then I do a completely different interval sessions like this. And it's based on the agile periodizations from Mladen Jovanovic. And I always do it from the speed at velocity intermittent fitness test 30-15, which give us an indicator of the capabilities of the aerobic capacity and the anaerobic capacity. And it also give us a number that we can calculate speed on the different short intervals of training that we are doing in this part here. That was a short explanation. Do you have any questions to this one?
No, I think that's a good explanation of the basic principle of it. I was trying to get my head around following it, but I think that looks a good little model.
So I suppose the question from my side on this one is, when you're looking at this model, are you putting this model in during the season and looking to improve people's fitness, or are you looking to maintain a level of fitness?
Sorry, I couldn't understand you. You have to mute your phone here again, Matt. So can you take it again, John?
Yeah, sure, no worries. So I suppose during the season and during the schedule of fixtures, when you're looking at the physical preparedness of players, in this model, are you looking at a maintenance level, or are you looking for an improvement in their physical fitness?
It depends on the players. If we should say an answer to that one, I think it's only maintenance. We don't want to drop so much during the season in the physical capabilities. But if we have younger players and those players who hadn't played so much, we want to give them maximum time to be prepared when they are playing. I think this model is easier for me to handle this type of situations, where I can have 3 players who is doing only prehab. I have 3 players who is playing handball and do some power, and we have rest of players who is just doing heavy maximum strength. So, but my most important goal is to just maintain, because I have in my schedule, we have a small period in November where we have national games, national Sweden, where we can do a little bit heavier period, and we also have a heavy period when they are championship in January, World Championship or European, where I can do a more heavier stuff. Okay, and for as I said, we do this test 30-15 velocity intermittent fitness test, who is an evaluation of the aerobic capacity, and also give us some speed where we can do individual intervals session. And it's based off this famous scientist, Martin Boucher, who is the head of performance at Paris Handball, or I think Paris Saint-Germain overall, I think also. 2 great books if you want to read about more on this agile periodization and interval training. My goal to be prepared for this training is to be I want to be like this, a Rambo. Although I do not want to do the same intervals for everyone, as he considered mass destruction weapon. I think that you will get some results, but you do not touch everyone, and you do not develop every single player. So he always talk about squeeze the toothpaste. As everyone do, they take it and do like this, and it comes out. But I want to be more like you, squeezing down in the corner and try to find every person's capabilities. And also we want to practice as we play. So the first of all, we want to recognize where your athlete is. Do he needs to evaluate aerobic capacity or anaerobic capacity, or is there just sprinting, anaerobic production? It's your job to evaluate. And of course, which energy system do we need to target? And of course, after that, we want to prescribe individual speeds with 30-15. We can do individual velocities also. So this looks like this test. If you have a football team, you're doing on the whole pitch, and if you have a handball team, you doing on the 20 meters. You starting 28 meters. So you're starting, if you have a handball pitch like this, you're starting up here, and you're running to the second one, and then you're moving on. So then you try to reach the zones before the beep. It's similar like a JoJo and a beep test. So when we moving on to prepare for training, we moving on to the importance of muscular strength and training considerations. And the first of all, I think that's important is the term that everyone has been studying sport science is the page 2 in the physiological book. Is the power is the product of force times velocity. We need to evaluate which of these two or power deferred that we need to prioritize. And as you know, strength induces stiffness, recruitment of motor units, rate coding, and motor unit synchronizations, which all influence our rate of force development. Rate of force development is the most important. It's the quickest time you can produce force or power that will make you jump higher or sprint faster, which help us be able to decelerate and tolerate the rapid movements on the pitch. And from the science here, we can see that weaker athletes should focus on developing a foundation of strength before emphasize power type of training. As we said before, that we need to give them time to develop physical skills before we give it in too much games. But only through until a certain level of strength is reached. And it's lead us to this one. If we could explain it more, we have the force velocity curve, which is in basic explanation is we have high, we train maximum strength, and this one we train more speed. So we need to evaluate which where on this curve we have our athletes. What shall they train on to increase their performance on the pitch? And we see two different athletes here who producing force over time or the performance. Athlete A here, who is force dependent, have a higher roof, which means they are producing more force. But we have athlete B, who is producing force faster, but not so much force. So the question is, what type of athlete do you want to have? My answer is B. I want to have them more faster. But sometimes their faster curve slopes here or stays here. And then we need to increase the force to get this roof higher. And I should place more ballistic training or more velocity orientated training on this athlete, the A, and more force orientated on this athlete to make them better in rapid movements.
Would that be true of all players, or would different positions have different requirements?
I'm coming to that one in a couple of slides here, but I think there are positional differences too. I've seen it by myself in my bachelor thesis, where I'm working with handball teams in Sweden. We see that wings are faster and the pivots are more stronger. So I believe that you have to take in these positional differences too when you evaluate players. And I think that is a future as football and hockey have done, and rugby I think also. So it's the same here as I said. This one's when in the beginning of the curve you see more fast orientated, and if you want to have the curve higher, you have to induce more strength training or more force orientated training. And it's the same here, the curve here. So how you can evaluate it is by force velocity profiling. So which side of the FC should you emphasize for your athletes? In easy explanations, you have two different athletes here. One athlete jumps 39 centimeters in squat jump, and one jumps 37.2 centimeters. But they are different in how they produce the jump height. So you see here that this player to the left have a little bit less force than athlete B, but he's a little bit faster than athlete B. So by doing this force velocity profiling, you're doing 4 squat jumps, one with 0% of your body weight, one with 20, one with 40, and one with 60. You can evaluate how fast this slope, how this slope of the curve will look like. And then you can try to emphasize a special thing about your training, if they should train strength or the velocity, or a combination of it, like power. So I did a bachelor thesis this spring between differences, and our question was if there are differences between player positions in team handball. So we recruited 5 different teams from the National Handball League here in Sweden, called Handbollsligan. And we used the app, which is an easy one for those who want to avoid this Excel files with the equations and stuff like that. You can just use this app, and it will calculate the equations for you. So we did this 4 jumps: one on 0, one on 20% of your body weight, one on 40, and one with 60 with barbell. And we can see 2 different players like this. You get the answer from the app. You see that one is force deficit and one is velocity deficit. And it's our hypothesis was that pivots should be more force orientated, and wings should be more velocity orientated, and it was confirmed. So you can see here that the pivot have more strength, like you see here, and they also have, and wings have lower strength. So the result you can see. Oops, I have to move this again, like this. You can see that we have a lot of differences in the mean from the players and the velocity, and it's also significant in this one. So I think it's also an important part to recognize that the players jump higher also than the pivot, which is not we expect it also because pivots are heavier too. Good. Moving on to the last one soon. So practical example, what I do with this result when I'm doing force velocity profiling. I try to place them in subgroups when we're doing strength. So you see the subgroups here. I'm using velocities with gym aware. You see the velocity here, and it's from the book Developing Power from the right. And we are using this with a barbell or with a trap bar and medicine ball also. Do we have any questions to this? No.
Sorry, yeah, I was just gonna. So in terms of, so you teams, I don't know, many people kind of watching this would be kind of amateur teams. Do you have any kind of advice on ways people can train if they don't have access to the equipment or the kind of resources, the technology? How can, if they don't have necessarily the gym to add these kind of loads or do these exercises, do you have any kind of advice to kind of make it more simple and more basic for any kind of lower
Yeah, I think it's, you can trust your how to say eye, and also how to say experience also. I think that you don't have to do it like this. I think it's a little bit nerdy, but it's, you can also do velocity like sprinting. Sprinting is the best if you want to reach high velocities. Just make them do maximum intent on sprinting and jumping. That is very good velocity. And if you want to emphasize force, you can just use heavier strength. You can use 1 RM, or you can use just reps until how to say exhaustion. If you want, and if you want to use more power, you can just use lighter strength, like medicine ball or weighted jumps and something like that. You don't have to do it, but I think that you have to be. This is a first step, I think, in individualizations. So I think it's, you can just go for your flow also and try to place them in what you think they have to. But if you want to test, you can use the app also. The app only, I think it's maybe $5, something like that, $6. And it's doing it with 20 players, take maybe 2 to 3 hours. And you can do it with 5 also if you are like unsure of where you should place them. And it's very, very, very easy to do it. You just 4 squat jumps and then you have a result.
Yeah, sure. Great, thanks.
So the last one, recovery. We have practical recommendations from the Academy of Nutrition, like this one. It's a paper published from the Journal of the Nutrition and Dietetics. And this is some kind of general explanation I have for my players. We try to work with them in meetings, and I try to give them. I try to give them responsibilities. I can't follow them home, and they have to do it by themselves. So it's important for me that they are doing this, and the first I want to is make sure that you close the open window, which is after the session. You are more capable of getting sick. You have to shut that window by take some nutrition afterwards. So that's the most important before you go home, after you take your carbs and your protein. And the last one, readiness. This one that I was talking before. The players, we evaluate how they respond to one session. So they're feeling it every day, and it's based off what happens yesterday. So here you can see nutrition. This is a number. Is the overall is the overall number, the average of the whole team. So this is nutrition. You have mental tiredness. You have muscular tiredness or fatigue. You have sleep quality, and you have recovery. So this is one player. No, this is the whole team. Sorry, and this is an example from one player. So even though that the team look like this, we can say that they are recovered. We have to see on every player. So if I see one like this, I have to ask them and try to talk what is inducing this kind of load. Good. Thank you for your time. It took me a little bit more than 1 hour, but I hope that you had some interesting information. And if you have some questions to me, you can reach me on social media. And here's my his information of it. I have also LinkedIn if you want to find me there. But thanks for your time.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Pontus, and sharing that with us. It was definitely interesting for me. I say it's an area of interest to me generally. So it was great to see an insight into kind of the level of detail that you work in, and hopefully give people, if they didn't already have it, a good appreciation of the importance of people in your role within handball and all other sports. So yeah, thanks for giving us your time and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was excellent. That was really informative. Like, particularly the level of detail you have there, and the reasoning behind what you're doing as well. It's excellent. So very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Axel. Thank you very much.
We see.
Yeah, take care. I'll see you soon.